Hello friends, welcome to my video. Today my topic is batch reduction, and this topic is very important not only for any competitive exam, but I think it will be helpful for the students who have curiosity to learn something new. So keeping all things in mind, I will start from the introduction part, then I will discuss about the reduction of alkyne and butadiene, then I will provide mechanistic interpretation for each and every reaction, and I have included frontier molecular orbital approach just to understand the reactivity of a substrate, and in one section I have added Curtin-Hammett principle just to understand the relative formation of two products from a molecule which has two conformations. So before I start the video, please do like, subscribe and press the bell icon so you don't miss a single video from our channel. So batch reduction is basically a redox reaction. This reaction was reported in 1944 by the Australian chemist Arthur Burch. Let me inform you one thing, that Arthur Burch was a PhD student of Robinson, working in the Dyson Perrins lab in the University of Oxford. If you search the history of this reaction, you can find out that World War II has a great impact in the discovery of this reaction, but for the time being I am not going into that because it will take a long time to complete the whole story. But if you want to know about it, then you can write in the comment section so I can post it. Now coming back to the examples of batch reduction, here I have given two examples. In the first example, the molecule is anisole. So in anisole molecule, the aromatic nucleus is electronically enriched because it is connected to an electron donating group having plus R effect. So as the aromatic ring is electronically enriched, so it will not accept electron in a easiest way for reduction. So the anisole molecule has higher potential energy barrier for reduction. Now for the second molecule, which is benzoic acid, the aromatic nucleus is electronically deficient because it is connected to an electron withdrawing group having minus I and minus R effect. So as the benzene ring is electronically deficient, so it can accept electron more easily compared to the anisole molecule. So the benzoic acid molecule has lower potential barrier for reduction. But the beauty of batch reduction is that by applying batch reduction, you can not only reduce an electronically deficient aromatic ring, but you can reduce an electronically enriched aromatic ring to form isolated diene product. Now coming to the point reduction, basically we have two chemical methods in organic chemistry for reduction. Number 1, number 2. The first method, where electron is added to an unsaturated molecule and then protonation occurs. So actually this process is continued for another time to give the product. And the second chemical method, where hydride ion is added to an unsaturated molecule and followed by protonation to provide you the product. So among these two methods, the first method which I am going to talk about, because the batch reduction follows this method. So in this particular method, you need an electron donor and you need a proton donor. For electron donor, we basically use group 1 metals like lithium, sodium, potassium for single electron transfer, and for proton donor we use alcohol, ammonia, secondary amine, primary amine, even we can use water molecule as a proton donor. Now, what kind of substrates can undergo Bach reduction? Normally, alkynes, conjugated dienes, aromatic rings, and alpha beta unsaturated carbonyls or any functional group having a low energy pi star orbital can undergo Bach reduction. So I will start serially from alkynes to alpha beta unsaturated carbonyls, but now I will be discussing about the alkynes. Let me tell you one thing, that Bach reduction of alkynes is complementary to catalytic hydrogenation of alkynes. So what does it mean? If you have an alkyne like this, then you can use sodium in liquid ammonia to convert it into transalkene, and if you have hydrogen and Niller catalyst, then you can convert it into a cisalkene. So basically, if you have an alkyne like this, then you can apply different reaction conditions, so you can either get cisalkene or transalkene, whatever you need, right? Now coming to the mechanism, lithium or sodium, which are basically involved in SAT process. Now what is SAT process? SAT process is single electron transfer process. So when we dissolve lithium or sodium into liquid ammonium, they will provide lithium plus or sodium plus an ammoniated electron, and just the formation of ammoniated electrons happen, the solution turns blue, and when you have ammoniated electron in the reaction medium and you have liquid ammonia, then these ammoniated electrons can reduce the liquid ammonia into amidine and hydrogen molecule. But important point is that this process is kinetically slower process. So if you have a molecule in the reaction medium that can accept electron in a much better way, then that particular molecule will be reduced preferentially with respect to slower reduction of ammonia. Now as soon as the reaction proceeds, the ammoniated electrons are consumed. So when the reaction is almost complete, then the solution becomes colorless. Now coming to the step 1, what happens? The solvated electron is donated into one of the vacant orbitals of alkyne to generate the radical anion. Let me draw the energy level of alkyne. If this is sigma star. If this is pi, this is pi star. So in between two carbon atoms in alkyne, we have 3 bonds. For 1 sigma bond, we have 2 sigma electrons. For 2 pi bonds, we have 4 pi electrons. Let me fill it up. So pi star is becoming LUMO, that is lowest unoccupied molecular orbital. Now we have SOMO in this particular energy level. SOMO means singly occupied molecular orbital. So the unpaired electron present in the SOMO is donated to the vacant pi star orbital of alkyne, and that will generate radical anion. Now if you see the radical anion where the unpaired electron and the negative charge are residing on the adjacent carbon. So the generation of such species is basically energetically unfavorable. So this equilibrium is almost on the left hand side. Now in the second step, what happens? The radical anion, which is a strong base, can abstract a proton from ammonia to generate vinyl radical, and destruction of this radical anion into neutral vinyl radical will drive the reaction in the forward direction. Now remember one thing, the first step was in probably backward direction, and now the second step is almost in the forward direction, but the forwardness of this step is much more than the backwardness of the first step. So overall the reaction is shifted to the right hand side direction. Now what happens with vinyl radical is that the vinyl radical, where this carbon is sp2 hybridized and this unpaired electron is in sp2 hybrid orbital, right? Now this vinyl radical can undergo inversion through this transition state, which is planar, and this carbon is sp hybridized and the unpaired electron is in pure p orbital. So basically through this transition state, this vinyl radical equilibrates between cis vinyl radical and trans vinyl radical. Now coming back to the trans vinyl radical, where you can see that two R groups are in antiposition. So as they are placed in antipositions, they are not in closer proximity. So as they are not in closer proximity, the steric repulsion is going to be minimized. So as steric repulsion is less, it is more stable, so population of trans vinyl radical is much more. And coming back to the cis vinyl radical, where you can see that two R groups are in syn position, right? As they are in syn position, so steric repulsion is going to be maximized. And just because of this cis vinyl radical is unstable. So as it is unstable, the population of cis vinyl radical is very less. So overall the equilibrium is shifted towards the right hand side, right? Now in the third step we have trans vinyl radical, because its population is very high compared to cis vinyl radical. So trans vinyl radical will accept a further electron to generate vinyl anion, and now we have vinyl anion and ammonia in the next step, where the basicity of vinyl anion is much more compared to the ammonia. So vinyl anion is acting as a base here and ammonia is acting as a acid here. So this base, that is vinyl anion, will abstract a proton from ammonia to generate this trans alkene as a product. But one thing you can notice here, that the reaction stops at this trans alkene stage. So particularly it indicates that normal alkenes or ordinary alkenes do not respond to Bach reduction. Now why ordinary alkenes are inert to Bach reduction whereas alkynes are reactive? So let me explain it one by one. The first point is that alkynyl carbon is more electronegative than alkenyl carbon. So an alkynyl carbon is sp hybridized. So we have 50% S character, whereas an alkenyl carbon is sp2 hybridized. So we have around 33% S character. Now percentage of S character is proportional to orbital electronegativity. So orbital electronegativity of sp hybridized orbital is much more compared to sp2 hybridized orbital. So for that, an alkynyl carbon is more electronegative than alkenyl carbon. So attack of an electron on a alkenyl carbon is much more facile compared to the attack of the electron on a alkenyl carbon. The next point is that after nucleophilic attack, the electron will be in sp2 orbital in case of alkyne. So this is the unpaired electron and this is the negative charge. So the unpaired electron is in sp2 orbital, where we have 33.3% S character. But in case of alkene, the unpaired electron will be in sp3 orbital. So this unpaired electron is in sp3 orbital, where we have 25% S character. So the unpaired electron residing on a sp2 hybridized orbital will be more tightly bound compared to the unpaired electron present in a sp3 hybridized orbital. So that is also favoring this statement. And in the third point, the bond energy of the third bond of alkyne is very low, indicating alkyne has a low-lying pi star orbital than that of a alkene. So normally if you look at the alkyne, we have 2 pi bonds, but in case of an alkene we have 1 pi bond. So as an alkyne has more number of pi bonds, so you can expect that an alkyne will be electronically more rich, so it will not easily accept an electron. But the fact is that the bond energy of third bond is extremely low. That probably indicates that the pi star LUMO energy of alkyne is much more lower than pi star LUMO of a normal alkene like ethylene, right? Now one statement you can make from the whole discussion of alkyne, that alkyne can act as a intermediate platform through which you can convert cis-alkene to trans-alkene or vice versa. So if you have an alkyne, then you can convert trans-alkene to cis-alkene or cis-alkene to trans-alkene, vice versa, right? By following different methods. An important point to be noted here that alkenes do respond to Bach reduction which have lower energy pi star LUMO compared to ethylene, right? So basically the molecules which have pi star LUMO energy greater than equal to pi star LUMO of ethylene, they will not undergo Bach reduction, whereas the molecules having the pi star LUMO lower than pi star LUMO of ethylene in energy, they will undergo Bach reduction. Now I will discuss about the Bach reduction of conjugated diene. So when we have butadiene as a substrate, then it will undergo Bach reduction to give 2-butene as a product. So interestingly, butadiene is responding to Bach reduction. So butadiene must have a low-lying pi star orbital for accepting electron compared to the pi star LUMO of ethylene. So I have already said that those molecules will undergo Bach reduction which will have a low-lying pi star orbital compared to ethylene. So butadiene has a low-lying pi star orbital compared to ethylene. So let us discuss why butadiene has a low-lying pi star. So for that purpose, we will construct the butadiene moiety by allowing 2 pi bonds to interact, right? So 2 types of interactions are there, and let us discuss in the MO picture. So here is the MO diagram where on the left hand side and the right hand side we have the pi molecular orbitals of each ethylene moiety. So this is pi bonding and this is pi anti-bonding, right? Now this pi HOMO can interact with this pi HOMO because they have same energy. So if these 2 pi HOMO can linearly combine in bonding fashion, they will generate psi A, and in anti-bonding fashion they will generate psi B. Similarly, this pi star LUMO can interact with this pi star LUMO because they have similar energy. So if they are combined linearly in bonding fashion, they will generate psi C, and in anti-bonding fashion they will generate psi D. And now the electrons are filled up in psi A and psi B. This is 2 electrons and this is 2 electrons. Now important points to be noted that the first point, the energy of HOMO in butadiene is increased compared to pi HOMO of isolated double bond. So it was the HOMO initially, and now in butadiene molecule the HOMO is this. So energy is increased compared to pi HOMO of ethylene. And second, the energy of LUMO in butadiene is decreased compared to pi star LUMO of isolated double bond. So it was basically LUMO of ethylene, and now in butadiene molecule the LUMO is this. So compared to ethylene, the energy of LUMO in butadiene is decreased. So as I have already said that those molecules which have lower pi star energy orbital compared to ethylene, they will undergo Barch reduction. So they will accept an electron from the metal for Barch reduction. So this LUMO is basically responsible for enhanced reactivity. Now butadiene has two conformations, S-cis conformation and S-trans conformations. So basically in butadiene molecule there is a single bond between carbon 2 and carbon 3. So rotation around this single bond will generate two conformations, S-trans conformation and S-cis conformations. Now the activation energy for rotation about the bond between carbon 2 and carbon 3 is approximately 28 kJ per mole on going from S-trans to S-cis. So let me draw this. If this is S-trans and if this is S-cis, then this activation energy barrier is 28 kJ per mole, and the activation energy barrier for rotation on going from S-cis conformation to S-trans conformation is basically given by this energy gap. This is 16 kJ per mole. Now the energy difference between the S-trans conformation and S-cis conformation is given by this energy gap. So what will be the value of it? So it will be 28 minus 16, so giving 12 kJ per mole. So there is almost 1% of S-cis conformation at room temperature. So that is indicating that the S-cis conformation must be unstable. So but why this S-cis conformation is very unstable? So let's have a look. So if we draw the structure of S-cis conformation, then the hydrogen present at carbon 1 and carbon 4 will have steric repulsion because they are in closer proximity. So this steric repulsion is making this S conformation very unstable. Now the difference in energy between cis-2-butene and trans-2-butene having almost similar type of interaction is 4 kJ per mole. So in cis-2-butene there is also steric repulsion between the hydrogen present at carbon 1 and carbon 4, right? And similar type of interaction is also present in S-cis conformation of butadiene, where we have steric repulsion between the hydrogens at carbon 1 and carbon 4, right? So in case of this S-cis conformation, the energy difference between the S-cis and S-trans is 12 kJ per mole, right? So if you compare these two values, that is 4 kJ and 12 kJ, the difference is that 12 minus 4, that is 8 kJ per mole. So if steric repulsion is only prime factor in S-cis conformation of butadiene, then the difference in S-cis and S-trans conformation will be likely around 4 kJ per mole, right? So as it is 8 kJ per mole, that is more, then you can expect that there must be another factor that is destabilizing the S-cis conformation. Now what is that particular factor that we have to consider? And this factor is secondary orbital interaction. Secondary orbital interaction plays an important role in determining the instability of S-cis conformation, right? So here we have the MO diagram, but before going into that, I want to mention one thing, that there are two types of interaction. One is primary orbital interaction and the other is secondary orbital interaction. So primary orbital interaction generally lead to the formation of a new bond, but secondary orbital interaction will not lead to the formation of any bond. So what they basically do, they alter the energy level of any electronic state. Now coming back to the MO diagram, on the left hand side we have psi 1 and psi 2 of S-trans conformation, and on the right hand side we have psi 1 and psi 2 of S-cis conformation. Now if you look at the psi 1 of S-cis conformation, then the orbital present at carbon 1 and carbon 4 are close to each other and their lobes are matching. So as their lobes are matching, they will lead to the secondary bonding interaction, but the extent of interaction is weak because the orbital coefficients on carbon 1 and carbon 4 are small, that is 0.371. So as the secondary bonding interaction is happening, so this will basically lower down the energy of psi 1. Let suppose the energy is decreased by minus x. Now in case of psi 2, that is HOMO, the orbital present at carbon 1 and carbon 4 are also close to each other, but their lobes are not matching. So this will basically lead to the secondary antibonding interaction. But this interaction is very strong because the orbital coefficients on carbon 1 and carbon 4 are large, right? So this secondary antibonding interaction will increase the energy of psi 2, and if the decrease in energy is by minus x, then the increase in energy will be by plus y, where mod of y is greater than mod of x. Why? Because the net destabilization is more than net stabilization. So the overall effect is that destabilization, right? Now coming back to the S-trans conformation, where if you consider psi 1 or psi 2, the orbital at carbon 1 and carbon 4 are far apart to each other. So there is no such secondary bonding interaction present. So now the overall energy of S-trans conformation is lower compared to the overall energy of S-cis conformation. So the stability of S-trans conformation is more than S-cis conformation. Now the competition is between S-trans and S-cis conformations. So the question is, which conformation is more reactive to undergo Bach reduction, right? So whenever we are talking about reactivity, it can be explained in terms of energy gap between HOMO and LUMO. So if it is HOMO or SOMO, singly occupied molecular orbital, and this is LUMO, that is lowest unoccupied molecular orbital, and the energy gap between HOMO and LUMO can be denoted as EACT, that is activation energy. Now if activation energy is higher then rate will be slower. And if activation energy is lower, then rate will be faster, right? Now, as the HOMO is fixed for a metal, so the conformation having relatively low lying piston LUMO is more susceptible to reduction compared to other, right? So now the competition is sorted out as the competition between LUMO of ACIS versus LUMO of S-trans, right? Now, among the two conformations that we have to consider that which particular conformation has lower energy piston LUMO, right? So for that consideration, we will discuss about the secondary interactions between p orbitals on carbon 1 and carbon 4 in S-trans and S-cis conformations for HOMO and LUMO of butadiene. So here is the MO diagram. So if you look at the Psi2, that is HOMO of S-cis conformation, you can see that the orbital coefficients on carbon 1 and carbon 4 are large. Thus, secondary antibonding interaction is very high. So as secondary antibonding interaction is a destabilizing factor, so it will increase the energy of the HOMO, that is Psi2. Now if you look at the LUMO, that is Psi3 star, so here the orbital coefficients on carbon 1 and carbon 4 are also large. Thus the secondary bonding interaction is high again. As secondary bonding interaction is a stabilizing factor, so it will lower down the energy of Psi3 star, right? Now if you consider the S-trans conformations, whether you consider Psi2 or Psi3, there is no such secondary orbital interaction is present, because the orbital at carbon 1 and carbon 4 are far apart from each other, so they can't interact, right? So the above energy diagram suggests that the energy of S-cis conformation is lower than energy of LUMO of S-trans conformation. So if this is SOMO of metal, then if it is LUMO of S-cis conformation, and if this is LUMO of S-trans conformation, so activation energy for S-cis conformation is denoted by E1 and activation energy for S-trans conformation is denoted by E2. Now E1 is less than E2, right? So for S-cis conformation, the HOMO-LUMO energy gap, which is expressed as activation energy, is lower compared to S-trans conformation. So S-cis conformation is more susceptible to Bach reduction compared to the S-trans conformation of butadiene, right? Experimentally, it is found that butadiene in Bach reduction provides cis-2-butene as a major product and trans-2-butene as a minor product. This result is also in accordance with Coutin-Hammett principle. So before going into that, let's have a look at the basic scheme of Coutin-Hammett principle. So if we have A and B which are in equilibrium, so that A and B can interconvert to each other. Now A can give product C and B can give product D. Here are some important points to be noted. The first one is that the energy barrier for their interconversion of A and B is much lower than the energies of activation of two reactions. And the second one is that the product formation depends on the free energies of activation of two reactions. So this is basically saying that if the reaction path is associated with lower free energy of activation, then that will give major product. If the reaction path which is associated with higher energy of activation, that will basically give the minor product, right? Now I will explain through Curtin-Hammett principle why we get cis-2-butene as the major product and trans-2-butene as the minor product. And we have two conformations. One is S-trans conformation, which is stable and more populated, whereas the other is S-cis conformation, which is unstable and less populated. And this is the free energy of activation for their interconversion by this single bond, right? And this is the free energy of activation for this reaction, and this is the free energy of activation for trans conformation to be converted into trans-2-butene as a product, right? Now if I designate it as del G1, and if we denote it as del G2, then del G1 is less than del G2, because whenever we are talking about batch reduction, then S-cis conformation which has lower energy pi star LUMO or lower energy LUMO that can accept electron more preferentially with respect to the S-trans conformation which has higher energy LUMO. So basically the energy of LUMO of S-cis conformation is lower than the energy of LUMO of S-trans conformation. Now the S-cis conformation which has less population, that is about 1% population at room temperature, but it has fast conversion rate, whereas S-trans conformation which has more population but it has slow conversion rate into trans-2-butene, right? And now as soon as this S-cis conformation is consumed in this reaction to form cis-2-butene as a product, then the concentration of the S-cis conformation will be lower, and then S-trans conformation will be interconverted to S-cis conformation, and then again this S-cis conformation will be converted into cis-2-butene as a product. And this process continued for several times. So as a result of that, we get cis-2-butene as a major product and trans-2-butene as a minor product. So hope all of you have understood it, and in my next video I will be discussing about the batch reduction of benzene molecule. And thank you very much for watching my video.